Okay, so on this video, we're going to take our built NG that we've been working on, and we're going to download the kernel for the Big Tree Tech CB1, and we're going to then flash that to the SD card and install Klipper and the BD sensor on this printer. So being that this is part 6, I believe, in the series, most of you are going to be familiar with my style of videos, and we're not going to have a lot of flashy cutscenes, a lot of flashy edits. I'm not a professional videographer. I'm an enthusiast just like you, and I wanted to share the process of building this printer with all of you. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and make this as direct as possible, cover every flaw that I make, and show you how I rectified that and got this printer up and running with the BD sensor in collision mode. So if that's something that you're interested in, please stick around. This is going to be a little bit of a longer video just because there's a lot to cover here. And I will share my configurations with this printer if you're also building an NG with the BD sensor. And I will have links to the GitHub repositories that I used, as well as any other items that I feel might be helpful during your build process. So thank you for tuning in to this video, and hopefully this is helpful and I can make this whole process a little bit easier for you. So enjoy. All right, to start things off, we're going to head on over to the Big Tree Tech GitHub, and we'll go into the CB1 repository. And in the repository, you're going to see this area over here for releases. And we're just going to go ahead and click on that. And we're going to go ahead and download the appropriate kernel for our needs. That one is going to be this one right here. We want the CB1 Debian 12 Klipper kernel. So we're going to go ahead and download that. Okay, now that the kernel is downloaded, we're going to go ahead and open our Raspberry Pi imager. And in our imager, we're going to choose no filtering. We're going to choose our operating system by scrolling down to use custom. And then we're going to select our kernel right here. And then once we insert our SD card, we will choose that for storage and continue on. And then we're going to choose our storage drive. And then we'll click next. So after you click on next, you can click no on the extra data if you're not using a Raspberry Pi. And all data will be erased. Yes, because we're going to format. And now we're going to write our operating system onto the SD card. Okay, and now that the image is written successfully, we will double check it. So I'm going to remove the SD card and then reinsert it, and we'll take a look at the files on it. Okay, and now that we are in the boot folder, we want to open the file named system, and we're going to edit a few points in here. Okay, and in this folder is where you can do a few things. You can rename your host. You can turn on the options for Klipper screen as well as update your Wi-Fi information. So we're going to go ahead and change the host name. I'm going to change it to Blue NG since that is what the printer is. And I will update my Wi-Fi information here, save it, and insert the SD card into the printer. So I will be right back with that. Okay, and now that we have the SD card put back into the Pi, we're going to use this application called Putty, and we're going to remote into our printer. So what you want to do is you could either put the host name that we just did, or if you know the IP address, you can go ahead and enter that. Okay, so once we're into the Raspberry Pi, or in my case the Big Tree Tech Pi, you're going to get this window right here, and we're going to install Kaya. And I just went ahead and installed the first portion of it, and we will put in the second portion. We will open up Kaya. And why not? Let's go ahead and update it. Okay, and we'll go back into Kaya. And let's see, it looks like I used this already, so I already have Klipper installed on here. So what you would do is you would go into your install and you would install Klipper, then Moonraker, and then your choice of web interfaces, either mainsail or fluid. I am used to mainsail, so I will use mainsail. And then whatever other options you want to add, that is all I'm going to add right now. I'm not going to use a webcam on this, and I don't have a screen on it currently, so I'm not going to install Klipper screen or Crow's Nest. Okay, and in the main menu, we're going to go to extensions, and we're actually going to install number 1, which is the G-code shell command. We will need that for a few other applications later on, so while we're in here, we might as well just go ahead and install it. And let's do an example so that we have it in there, and we're all set. So we are good in Kaya for now. So I'm going to exit out, and we're going to be back into our main terminal. From here, we're going to go into the GitHub repository for the BD sensor, and I'm going to show you how to install the BD sensor, as well as what changes need to be made for it to run properly. So I will be right back with that. Okay, and now that we are in the repository for the bed distance sensor, we're going to go ahead and scroll down until we have the option for the wiki. So we're going to go ahead and click that, and we're going to click installing on Klipper. So scrolling down, you'll see the instructions for installing the software. So we will start with that. Okay, and now that that section has been installed, we're going to go with the next section and do our make menu configuration. And this is going to be the configuration for your main board. Okay, and now that we have the make menu configuration open, I wanted to show you the configuration for the Big Tree Tech Mini E3 V3, which is the board that we're going to be using. So we're just going to mirror this section right here. This is what we're going to make our menu configuration look like. So let's go ahead and enable extra low level. Go to the correct chip. Make sure our processor matches this G0B1. And we want an 8K bootloader, 8 megahertz crystal, and USB on PA1112. And with that all set, we're going to hit Q and then Y. And then we want a make clean. And over here on the repository for the BD sensor, it says make with BD sensor. Now, in my experience, that has led to an error in Klipper. So we're just going to type in make. And we want to make sure that we see compiling out with BD sensor 0. So we're just going to take a look at all of these compiling that show up. And we want to make sure that we see one that says BD sensor.0, which is right here. So we are good here. And with the Mini 3 V3, we need to use an SD card to flash the firmware. So once this is done, we're going to open up WinSCP and put that on an SD card, name it firmware.bin, and restart the printer. Okay, and with your main board flashed, you want to run this command. Right here. And what this will do is this will give you your MCU ID. So you want to grab this whole piece right here, and we're just going to copy that. Refresh the window, and we're going to just put that in a notepad for later. And now from here we can go to our web browser, and here we can open up our Klipper web interface. Okay, so we have this error because we're not running a proper printer.cfg. So let's go ahead and open our printer.cfg, and we're going to remove this right here. And then we're going to go to the GitHub for the Mini E3 V3, and we're going to grab this config right here, and we're just going to copy, we're going to select all, copy, and we're just going to paste this here, just like so. And now we're going to do our configuration changes. So we're not going to run a BL touch, so we can delete this section. And I like to move things around just to make it a little neater. So we're just going to bring this down below above here. And actually, I'm going to go get this cleaned up a little bit, and when I come back, we'll be ready to configure our printer.cfg. Okay, and we're back with our cleaned up printer.cfg. And a couple of changes to make right off the bat is we want to update our MCU serial. with the one that we just grabbed. So we're going to replace everything here. And our printer is not a Cartesian, so we're going to change this to core XY. The rest can stay as it is for now. And we just want to make sure that our X, Y, and Z steppers are good for now. Probe Z virtual end stop is good. We will do our mins and maxes later. I do want to bring stealth chop to 0. And we'll configure our extruder later as well. For our leveling, homing, and Z-tilt, we will update that. We're actually not running Z-tilt, so let me delete that. And we will, for this section, we will go over to the BD sensor repository. And there's a couple items that we need to move over from here. So scrolling down to configuration, we want this section here. And we will add that in front of here. And I run mine in collision, so we're going to turn that to 1 and 1. And let me just grab my offset from my other NG. A little bit of cheating going on here, but that's okay. If you're running an NG with the BD sensor, your offsets will be about the same. So our X offset, I have a 0, and Y is 20. And actually, we're going to go ahead and just clean up some of these commented out sections just to make things a little easier. Okay, and then we want to add these homing speeds to our Z stepper. So we're going to copy these, and I grabbed the comment position end stop out as well. So under our Z stepper, position end stop is already commented out. So we're just going to delete this one. And under here, paste in our new settings. And from experience, I know that I need to change my second homing speed. I like that set to 4. And retract and speed are good the way they are. And for our Z, we do have to change our rotation distance because of the lead screws we're using. Okay. And with our configuration almost set, we want to verify the pins for our BD sensor. The SD8 pin is going to go to PB8. And the SCL pin is going to go to PD6. Okay, so one thing you'll note here is the EXP1 does not end up working for us here. I have had luck with it on the Octopus board. However, with this board, it doesn't seem like it wants to play nice. So later on in the video, we're going to switch back over to using the BL Touch ports. So if I were you and you were using this board, I would just skip ahead and use BL Touch for this. If you are using the BL Touch adapter, you're going to want to use the pins for that. And with those changes made, let's try a save and reset and see if any issues come up. Okay, so we have no errors. So now we're going to head over to the BD sensor and we're going to check on our settings for that. So if we scroll past the introduction to collision, we want to activate it. So we have changed our collision settings to 1 on both. And we also want to make sure that we have our other settings correct. So our Z-hop under safety home and our homing retract distance. So let's go and verify that. Retract distance is set to 5. And we have Z-hop set to 10, so let's go ahead and bring that down to 5. And then we also need the 0 reference position. So under bed mesh, we're going to go ahead and we're going to add this. And we'll save and restart again. Now we're going to double check to make sure our steppers are going in the right direction. So let me reposition the camera and we'll get a better look at the stepper movement. Okay, and before we move anything, we want to run a M119 command. And we have an error with the with the BD sensor. So it's a good thing we didn't go ahead and hit home. Okay, so we did a little troubleshooting off camera, and I found that it was easier and more reliable to connect the BD sensor to the BL Touch ports. So for the SDA, we're using PC14, and for the SCL, we're using PA1. And if we go over here, then in the console, and we type in M102S1, we get our information from our BD sensor, which means that it's reading properly. And then if we go back and we do S2, it will give us a distance of 0. Okay. And now we can run our M119 command, and we have X open, Y open, and Z is triggered. And that is because we need to calibrate. So we're going to go and we're going to make sure that everything is moving in the right direction. And to do that, I'm going to home X and keep my finger over the emergency stop. Okay, so that worked out perfectly. And for Y, we're good there. And now we're going to go into the center of the bed. And we're going to home Z. So we have this warning here for triggered in air, and that's related to our speeds. So let's go ahead and we're just going to place a metal item in between the sensor and the bed to stop the movement. and we're going to play around with the speeds a little bit. Okay, so we're back after a couple little adjustments. One thing I did notice was that my particular build sheet, it didn't really like it with the non-textured side up. I'm not sure why. I'll have to do some more testing with that at a later point. But just to show you in the console, so let's go ahead in home and I'll show you what contact looks like. So your nozzle probes the bed and it touches it a couple times just to get a reading, and then you will get your distance. And here we have a distance of 138 at 0, which is very strong. And we will go back over to the calibration settings. Okay, so in your installing for Klipper section, there's one more thing that we want to add before we can go ahead and do calibration. And that is right here. You want to add your force move into your printer.cfg so that we can set our kinematic position to 200 for our calibration. Okay, and after we've added the force move section and we've restarted Klipper in home to the printer, we want to go down to section 5 with calibration, and we want to copy this set kinematic position to Z200, and we'll enter that over here. And now our Z is set to 200, so we can adjust accordingly. And what we want to do is, with a clean nozzle, we want to move the Z so that the nozzle is just touching the bed. Okay, and with our nozzle just touching the bed, we want to send the M102 S6 command, and this will do our calibration. After a couple minutes, we'll get our numbers, and what we're looking for while it's doing the calibration is we want our first number in the calibration to be as close to 100 as possible, and the second value to be at least 10 digits higher than the first. If your first reading is 400 or larger, then your sensor is too high and you need to bring that closer to the bed. One more thing to note, if you are running the single Z access for the NG, you want to add a section in your printer.cfg under the Z stepper for gear ratio 2:1. And I want to thank user GOTVM on the NG Discord. I had a conversation with him while we were setting it up, and he's actually the one to note that, and he got it working on his system. I have not used the BD sensor on an NG with a single Z up until now, so I wanted to thank you for catching that so that we can help other people who are trying to set this up for themselves. So moving back over, our calibration has finished, and scrolling down we'll see that our first reading is 170 and our second reading is 188, and I'm okay with that. And our final reading is 850 at 3.9 millimeters. So with that being said, let's go ahead and call that a success. And for further tuning, what you'll want to do from here is your standard Klipper setup, including your PID tuning for your heaters. You want to find your exact offset for your probe. You want to find your min-max for your bed mesh and go from there. So hopefully this was informative, and if it is, I would appreciate a subscribe and a like. If you have any other questions, feel free to reach out to me in the comments or on Discord. And if you are interested in a BD sensor, please check out my website if you are in the US. And if you are not in the US, I will include another link as well. But thank you for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.